Hello and welcome back to Run It Back, and I'm going to use this introduction again. We are the #1 award-winning best Valorant OCE podcast you'll ever find on any platform.
He's even written it down.
Yeah, I know.
That's how seriously gone now. It's just like a real thing
every
now.
week. I've changed it up like here and there every week, but I feel like this is the one. This is the one that I'm going to use because I don't think anyone can contest us. Like, look at us. We were on an official broadcast. Like, how good are we, honestly?
Just the best. Uncontested.
Yeah.
Hey, congratulations on the grand finals pre-show for Mix over the weekend with Rack and Ducky. Well done, guys. Had a special episode. Got one of those in there.
Hey, we were all on the grand finals cast. I don't know what you're talking about. We Rack and I did a special preview of the grand final with Conky and Komodo, and then Avril was hot on the mic.
It's actually like pretty good content. Like I was kind of thinking about, I was like, this could be quite interesting. You know, we don't really have this kind of stuff usually in tournaments. Like usually in tournaments, there's not like any long form content to go over a massive break like this. It kind of reminds me of like you're watching Dota TI or something, and you just have like between teams playing or like massive breaks, you just have like all this big content in between, which is quite nice. It's a bit of a different feeling, and yeah, not bad. Didn't mind it at all.
Well, you heard it from Avril, so we can do it again, fellas. Come on, ring us up, run it back.
Are we green lit? Like any tournament organizer out there that wants our award-winning podcast, you can just hit us up. Honestly, like we've got the viewers stats to back up how big we are. We're just the biggest and best. Anyways, I was gonna say, speaking of the biggest and best, we've got one of the biggest and best casters in OCE Valorant. He's definitely one of the grinders within the scene. I'm very, very interested to hear his thoughts about everything, basically. He was on the Mex cast, not alongside Kev, but, you know, was definitely casting a lot of the top games there. And I guess there's no better way to introduce him than if he introduces himself. It's Mr. TwoTapTony. How are you going, mate?
I'm doing well. Pleasure to be here. I'm a big fan.
Oh, it's very heartfelt from one Shadownet simp to another that you're a big fan of his podcast, you know? Avid viewer. We like to have those on the show because it makes us feel good. Because you tell us how much you watch the podcast, and you know that's the best part about it.
Of course.
Yeah. Well, I guess I said it myself. Probably no better person to introduce yourself than yourself. So, who is TwoTapTony?
Well, I'm an amateur caster. I'd like to use the word amateur because, you know, it's very varying levels of casters, of course, in the scene and overall across the globe. But yeah, no, so I got my start in Counter-Strike, believe it or not, as most casters in our scene have probably. And I started with a very, like, my mates hit me up one day. They're just like, oh, we really want to watch our game back. Is there any way you could stream the game and you know, maybe make some notes over the top of it or something like that? And I did that, like, I think 4 years ago at this stage. It's been a long time. But yeah, so like 4 years ago, and since then it's been nothing but CS. I obviously, when Val came out, I immediately played the beta, fell in love, tried to learn everything I could about the game as quick as possible, basically.
When do you go from amateur caster to non-amateur caster in your mind? That's because it's a very interesting that, you know, you kind of drop that label in there. So
stops being a semi-pro player in Evo, mate.
When
like, he can't have his foot.
What's an amateur caster?
Yeah, true. I feel once you hit like a LAN, then you really like build yourself up. You know, you get a bit of LAN exposure. You get exposed to a whole bunch of like different production side of things as well. It's just like a lot better from the in your room bedroom cast, very casual and very relaxed.
I mean, that's all we've had this year, let's be real. Like that is the professional gold standard now, is the bedroom cast. I mean,
you got Ducky,
I don't think you've been in broadcast. You've been in studio all year, Kev, haven't you?
Have you watched contenders?
So you've had contenders in studio, haven't you? Yeah. But even then, like, I remember you were talking about it. It might have been on a past episode. Might have been a cheeky private call that, like, people don't want you in a studio sometimes.
Who's people? Like, we talk
producers, like
only if it's like dangerous or too costly. Only under those two circumstances.
Yeah. Look, everything's dangerous to you, man. You're dangerously hot on the vid. Let's be real. They can't have you too much screen time.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen how muscly Avril is as well. So if anything goes wrong in the studio, producer's going to be flying across the room. So just too strong for everyone, Av.
I just find COVID off all on my own. Tackling it away.
He is the cure.
Back COVID, back you go.
Before this gets flagged by any like platform for spreading COVID conspiracy theories, let's move on. Obviously, the big talking point in OC Valorant this week was the L'Oreal Men Expert Invitational, powered by Intel, hosted by the Chiefs, and there were look. I'm just going to flat out say it. It was the best Valorant that we've seen in OCE so far, and quite possibly the best series we'll see in years. And it's definitely something people are going to be talking about in the months and years to come. Happened this weekend, and it was absolutely incredible. So if you didn't catch the action, spoiler alert, Order won, but God, it was tantalizing. Rack and I spoke about it in the pre-game show that we did on the day, but I'm interested to hear your thoughts, Tony, because you weren't necessarily on the main broadcast, but you got the chance to cast both teams, didn't you?
I believe I touched on Order. I didn't get to any of the EXO games, unfortunately. Okay. They weren't in the schedule for me. But yeah, no, it's good overall.
Well, anything from Max that you want to point out before we dig deep into this? Because I know that the other two guys on here, there's a lot to talk about in this tournament.
I suppose I want to touch briefly on how underrated Rip and Tear were going into it. Of course, they got seeded 8th place, and well, they blew everyone's expectations out of the water, placing 4th overall, and rightfully so. No Tick as well, blowing everyone's expectations out of the water.
Obviously, those are two Evo teams that you're very passionate about the LPL scene. Kev, I want to pass this to you. You were on the grand finals cast.
Yeah.
What the fuck happened that game?
It was long. We played all the maps, and every single map went the maximum distance possible, except for when I say maximum distance possible, I mean of regulation time. Only one map went to OT.
Yep.
I can't even imagine what would have happened if they all went to OT or if multiple maps went to OT, because it was already the longest ever Valorant broadcast I've ever been on. Because I've never done there's not a lot of best of 5s as it is, but I've never even done a best of 3 where every single map goes the full distance. And I think I've casted some games that have had some pretty deep overtimes, but not like this. This is pretty nuts. So it was pretty taxing. It was very exciting. And overall just super enjoyable. I mean, just seeing the two best teams battle it out, playing the top level Valorant that we have in Oceania, and really no holds barred there. Both teams are just going fully at it. Everything's on the table. Everything's on the line. You could tell every single round was by the edge of your seat, just, both teams, all 10 players just playing at 100%. And that's why it was the best game ever, because we just haven't seen that yet. Every single other time these guys play at a final or the match, I think they've played in total 6 times now in officials, and the other 5 times they played, one team just ended up stomping the other, whichever way around. So we've never seen them kind of go neck and neck. And so it was to be fair, it was fairly disappointing in the past. The other 5 matches, one team dominating the other, it's not that fun to watch, and you always get a little bit disappointed at the team that gets dominated because you always feel like they should be doing better. And now you finally get the matchup people have been waiting for. I think the one that was deserved, which is the one that is supposed to go back and forth, and it's supposed to be very close, and it's supposed to showcase what the top level looks like.
Yeah, and look, you're doing yourself an injustice if you don't go back and watch this series. Josh on screen now has one of the best players from the tournament. I'm not sure if it has commentary or not, but
it is the best player from the tournament.
Look, there's no audio on it. Because we don't hear that end. But look, this was the best player of the tournament. Saying it was one of the best is not. But I guess even though there's no, you cast.
It was something like Max, I can't remember actually. I don't know what he said anymore. I think at this point we're it's a pretty standard round. People are dying and stuff. And then it's 2-4. Are we listening to Exo's comms right now?
I'm stunning default line. Stunning.
Josh is going to put them on for us.
I think at this point, both Mac and I are like, it's kind of over. Then it's like, oh, one kill, and then I'm like, wait a minute, and then we both go nuts for a bit of a second, and then I say something along the lines of like, I don't even know what's going on anymore.
My brain is melted.
My brain is melted. Mac saved me because I don't know what to say anymore. What an incredible round. Just that.
Thank you for the recount, Avril.
Yeah, that was top quality casting.
This is the replay
for you.
That series, I just it sends chills down my spine every time I think about it. I think were you going to say something, Rock?
Well, like for me, I mean, this really solidifies an intense rivalry between both the teams because Avril brought up like a very good point in that where both of these teams versed each other previously, of course, not the same roster for the Order Squad, but it would be one team performing really well on the day and just sort of, cruising through for the rest of the match. But now that we've seen like a proper, best of 5 where, both of these teams slug it out in very, very close maps, it tells a different story because of the length as well. Because one of the most interesting aspects of esports for me, or like a championship quality, is to have an extended series throughout a drawn out map, right? Where you go into the overtime or you're going into like the 13 to 10s, very, very close matches, because those are like the most intense moments as a player. That's really going to test and like validify yourself as a player of championship caliber.
It's a question that when you look at these two teams, like EXO and Order, like they're both very experienced teams in games before Valorant. Like Order is got a CS:GO major player on it in Dick Stacy. Tux and Texter obviously don't have the chance to go to majors, but they were two of the finest CS:GO players of all time in Oceania. You look at EXO, they've got international experience on their team with like guys like Iron going to WESG. Like, Tony, this is like your bread and butter in CS:GO. Like, there are a lot of big names in here. Like, when you look at the experience on these teams, it's quite something.
It definitely is something. Of course, most of these top rosters making up a ton of ex-CS players, of course, ex-professionals. As you said, people getting invited overseas. It's just really good to see, of course, the top level of CS. Like, some of these players are, getting on to like 25, 26 and still have that caliber to play at a top level in a different game.
I guess to me, there's also like when you look at Tux and Texter, because both of them are back banned from CS:GO, seeing them actually get almost like a second chance in Valorant makes me really excited because they never got the chance to spread their wings in CS:GO. And it's series like these, like, I'm just going to flat out say it, this wasn't just the best of 5 in Oceanic Valorant history. I think this is the best BO5 in Valorant history, full stop. Like, this has been, like, if anyone is watching OC Valorant, you have to direct into this series first off, because this is the best the region has to offer so far.
Thoughts, Avril?
I actually want to see what would have happened if we went to a proper map 5, because we played like 4 maps with 1 map advantage, and I can go on about my dislike for the 1 map advantage kind of thing going on, but if you actually played all 5 maps, what would have happened? Because in my mind, part of me also looks at that and says, like, actually it's kind of like 2-2 in a way, because you look at that result, we played 4 maps, it's 2-2 in scoreline in terms of who actually won the maps.
Because EXO had the advantage.
Yes, I'm saying, what if we actually played the 5th map? Because we only played 4 maps. So if you ignore the 1 map advantage, it's only a 2-2 in my mind. Do you know what I mean?
Well, I mean, Orders didn't have the map advantage and they won the series. So, like, it's a 3-1.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, then do a best of 7 then. What's the problem?
I mean, I don't know what. Also, I kept talking rubbish. Icebox was played the weekend. Like, what are you talking about, bro? Like, didn't you see the game on Icebox? We had some cracked plays.
Oh my
God.
No, you know what? You're right. You know what? Fine. Yeah, Order 3-1. There you go. That's the final result. But you know what? Just make them play another one.
They didn't get
just
to make
a sudden death.
Order put the series to bed in Haven. Like, they didn't get the chance to play Icebox. I'm actually really interested to see Icebox because I feel like when I've looked back at other regions and competitive play as well, I feel like this was like, I know it's a show match, but when you put it, it's kind of like the first top tier streamed match on Icebox that I've seen. But Jet's in my ear, like they're all playing Jet. But at the same time,
Probably wouldn't describe it as top tier.
Bro, there was some
there's
some
some good
great
plays.
gameplay. Didn't you see the 1v5?
Why did we make it all Jets? Why didn't they just play like a normal game?
I mean, look, we're not going to question it, but I do want to say that, like,
I literally am questioning it.
I want to say something that, like, Icebox is coming into the map rotation in like 2 or 3 weeks. It's going to be eligible for first strike finals, I think, in OCE, and I'm really excited to see it played out. Even though I feel like it's the most puggy map, I feel like that makes it the most exciting at times.
It's puggy because no one's really figured it out yet. Like it's less puggy when people know what they're doing.
But even then, it's still like it feels like just Mirage 2.0 to me.
What's wrong with that? I love Mirage.
It's a pretty big map. I'll write it.
Look,
Mirage
it
is a
feels
great
very
map.
weird. It feels very weird first off, but yeah, it's sort of like the growing pains. Everyone's figuring out things. Whether you just see in your ranked matches people relentlessly rushing forward or people hiding in corners just crouching. You could get either way really.
Ascent's a big puggy map on release. Like every map's a big puggy map on release.
Yeah, Ascent was
until
very
people
similar.
figure it out. Until people figure it out, and then it's fine.
Yeah, I don't know. There's just something about the design of Icebox, but as we said, it's not ready yet. But maybe we can finally start having True BO5s come the end of first strike.
God, it's better than Bind. That's the only thing I care about. We're getting there.
Look, any map is better than Split for me. Like, honestly, if you put me on Split, I just want to Alt F4. Please, just no more Split. Like,
I think we only split once.
Everyone just hates
Yeah.
the original maps, is what I get to. Everyone hates all the OG maps.
Haven's a homie map. I love Haven.
Yeah. Bit of a
As
gimmick,
I've
but-
told people many times, Haven's the only map you can throw a Brim Molly from B to C and B to A through the slats on the B roof. It's so incredible. I love those mollies, and no one can take them away from me. Even though Brim's just never picked, but whatever.
True.
Yeah, never picked. You're right in that.
He was never picked in the Max Invitational.
Yeah.
And Killjoy was never picked either, which is... I think the Killjoy stuff in OC is interesting, because you look at other regions, like Korea, you look at EU, you look at NA, and like Killjoy has like a 15 to 20% play rate. In OC, no one picks her.
Because everyone's a Cypher one trick in OS. That's the truth.
People are going to
Cypher
have to
player
get the
in OS
crutches off.
Every Cypher player in OS is like, nah, fuck it. And they don't want to do it.
I think that could be it.
They're all one tricks. I'm not joking. I'm telling you that's what it is. Well, you don't need to think about it. I'm just saying that's what it is.
Well, like when players are comfortable on an agent, I mean, sometimes they just want to stay there despite the nerf. They're just like, I've played this
Also,
before. I'll just stay.
OS is now also the Jet one trick region as well. OS is like 100% play rate on Jet. Even NA.
Like 98%.
Even NA.
Ducky? 98% was it?
No,
Yeah,
Jet's
so
100.
there was one game in the Max Invitational where someone
Really?
didn't pick Jet. It
Oh,
was Infrequent. No Tick didn't pick it one game because Infrequent played Reyna.
Yeah.
But I can't remember what game it was.
We have the stat sheet, Avril. We can link you that if you want
Yeah.
that. in the archive somewhere.
Yeah, I'm looking for it. I just typed in ValorGG Mix and it gave me ValorGG Mexico. So hang on. Hold up.
The pinnacle first strike region. I'm pulling up the spreadsheet now. Hold on. Give me 2 secs. So it was only not picked by Notic versus EXO on Split, and they lost the map 13-2. So read into that what you will. I think Infrequent top fragged, but like EXO hard bombed. Speaking of EXO on Split's like a wonderful team to watch. They're the only team that pulls out the Viper.
Mm-hmm.
And did they win that map? I can't actually remember.
Yeah, EXO thumped Notic.
No, but they lost to Order on
But
Split.
they did lose to Order. It
Twice actually.
Yeah.
Upper final and grand final.
Yeah.
And you know what? Every team, and I'll say, well, every team that I've watched anyway, attempt Viper on Split has ended up losing. And I just think like it's like okay, but I don't know, it just still feels a little experimental. It just still feels like it's not really that reliable yet. Still, I mean, it does some interesting things, but ultimately, so far to me, it's just felt okay. I don't know if I can really correlate like the Viper pick with every single team that I've seen using the Viper on Split losing as well. I'm sure there's maybe a bit of correlation, but at the same time, who knows? Maybe teams are still just not playing Viper correctly yet, or utilizing it to its full potential, or a whole bunch of other things. I just find it interesting that despite teams giving Viper a go, the win rate's actually not good.
I mean, what's your thoughts on this, Tony? Like, it's kind of a pick that's coming up in prevalence, not just in OC, but across other regions as well, and even down in Evo.
Yeah, I haven't seen too much Viper in Evo. I believe a lot of teams still straying away from it. Still trying to work it out, I guess. I definitely want to echo the sentiment. I feel Viper not really that great on Split, but a map like Bind, maybe even Ascent, you could do some risky things. You could do some cheeky one ways, get some nice walls in.
It just feels like a gimmick.
Yeah, it's very like hit and miss sometimes with Viper. Definitely. I want to see some more Viper. I know. I believe it's Calmsy. Rebcrez. Rebcrez. Definite wants to see more Viper, and well, guys, give it to him. Come on.
Yeah, I feel like Viper's kit struggles for a lack of versatility. She's very much set, and then you can't do anything. And if the enemy hits the other site, well, you're screwed.
Agreed. And it's sort of like when you're evaluating whether to put an agent on your team, it's like, okay, you can't exactly judge the agent in a vacuum as well, because you need to understand that it's replacing an agent in your team composition, right? Like, it needs to be better objectively than the agent that you want to have in the team composition. So what is the Viper going to be replacing, right? So you have to have the debate of what you're going to like gain, what you're going to lose. I can understand some of the philosophy but like wanting to have the Viper on Split, but overall it is a little bit more of a risky type decision in my opinion, but I do nonetheless appreciate the innovation.
I guess a wonderful bow to tie this off with before we start talking about First Strike is after looking back at Max Invitational, if you were to highlight one big winner of the tournament and one big loser of the tournament heading into the next couple of weeks of Rise of Valor action, who would you pick? We'll start with you, Tony.
My eyes are definitely going to be on Rip and Sarah, of course. I believe I touched on him in some of the notes I did for the lower bracket final they played against Notic. Of course, a very one-sided series. Notic came out swinging that one. But Rip and Sarah yet to crack top 5. And I have a lot of high hopes in them. Of course, they have guys like Void, guys like Scroll, all of that. They've been playing very, very phenomenal as of late. Void, of course, an ex-CS player, now come to Valorant. And as we said, a Jet 1 triggers, most players are heroes.
Any big losers, perhaps? Like any teams that you're potentially came out worse for wear?
Yeah, Kanga. Definitely Avant as well. Kanga and Avant are two teams that I think they need a little bit more work. Of course, Avant, I was thoroughly disappointed actually by both of them. Because Kanga came out swinging against Order in I believe it was the first game of the night, the first game of the afternoon. Sorry, and very, very rough circumstances they faced. Of course, Order then went on to win the entire thing, looking very, very hot. But yeah, Kanga and Avant definitely teams I want to see work on it going into the First Strike.
If your winner isn't Notic, I'm pretty sure Shadow Prophet's going to come into the Twitch chat.
No, he can fight me. My winner is Order, obviously. And the reason it's Order is because I don't even. First of all, I don't know who you just said. By the way, I don't know who that person is. But Order, obviously, because they had a bad record versus EXO, even coming into this event. Again, they played each other 5 times before 4 times before Max. They played each other twice during this event. In the OVO, they beat EXO, but in Rise of Valor, EXO beat them 3 times. That's ridiculous. Like 3 times. And I believe over the 3, I think 2 of them were best of 3s and the other one was a best of 5. Or maybe they were all best of 5s. In either case, EXO beat them pretty convincingly across the board, and I believe they only dropped 1 map to Order the entire time. So yeah, the entire record over those 3. So it was a best of 5. It was like 7-1 in maps. The 3 times they met in RV. So in a way, if you look at RV results, which you should, it is very heavily favored towards EXO, and then you have the case where then Launch made changes. You can argue for or against. You can say, yeah, their changes are better or worse. In some cases, I think, well, now in hindsight, you can definitely say they're better. And I think even when we went back to an earlier podcast episode, we kind of mentioned like Order's pickups, to me at least, felt like they had first pickings of Ground Zero, and they were the first ones to kind of get in there and get the players I wanted, and everyone else, took turns at taking Ground Zero player each. And this is the kind of team where, I kind of want to see them prove themselves. I kind of want to see Order live up to what we know this team can do, which is beat EXO from OVO. But since then, they just haven't really lived up to that reputation. So coming into this event, then losing to EXO again in the upper final is kind of like, well, this is just deja vu. We're back to ROV. It seems like EXO is still the dominant team, but then to win in the grand final is such a massive, like, that's what it's about. That's actually what you want to see out of Order, and that's why I think they're such a big winner, because they also won, in my opinion, like the roster shake-up as well. They won the roster trade situation with picking up the ground zero players. And just kind of really prove themselves again. Because what you don't want to do, I'm sure EXO would love to just be the dominant team forever, but what you don't want in an esports scene, in my opinion, is you don't want just one team winning absolutely everything. You want there to be some good competition, so there's two different teams vying for the top spot, even if it's just two right now. You want at least two teams vying for the top spot to keep on pushing each other to improve each other. You wouldn't just want one team solidifying a ridiculous dynasty and they're completely untouchable. And it's just not fun for anyone. It's not fun for the viewers. It's not fun for the other teams either. Which is kind of like what CS is. It's just like Renegades win everything. It's like kind of boring. So I do like that we have a bit more competition on the top side. And to keep it short, I kind of echo what TwoTapTony said about Kanga. I think Kanga did super well in ROV, and then to come in here and bomb out 0-3 is kind of uncharacteristic.
Well, for me,
Racket third, because like it's every time it's racket third. But I feel there's a lot of good talking points that we can like, because I personally think there's bigger winners myself, but I'll leave that to you, Rack.
well, this is a sort of mini win, but I think this is going to be attached to the loser, and the loser may surprise a lot of you folks once I get to that. So Legacy, in my opinion, getting a win off EXO Clan is a huge win for them. Now, there is an attachment to that, and we'll get into that in a little bit. But I think, just in terms of getting something positive for them, it's something to look for. But, there is an attachment here, and this is a big asterisk for me. I think EXO Clan are actually the losers. Now, I say this because of reasons, in that I know EXO Clan as reasons. Yes, reasons. That'll be quoted. I think EXO Clan have a very high standard of themselves, and I think EXO Clan early on throughout the tournament were pretty shaky, to be honest. I mean, you had a few of their members like saying that they weren't exactly like having enough sleep, like they felt like they had really big underperformances themselves. Now, that when you lose, I think it's easy to say those type of things, but like for me, it did look like they were out of shape a little bit at the start of the tournament. And when you look at a dominant team such as EXO Clan and see them, vulnerable at the early stage of this tournament in Chiefs, it's sort of like, knocks the light bulb in your mind. And it's like, these guys are mortal, these guys can actually lose. So that sort of invulnerability barrier around them, I think it sort of broke here. So with Legacy happening, Legacy getting that win, and also the fact that, Order, as Ducky said, I mean, this is pretty much a 3-1. As close a lot of these maps were, it was basically a 3-1, and Order did a very good job at slicing through these matches. And considering that Order had a couple of new players come in as well, with a little bit of a roster shakeup, and managed to perform at that high level against EXO, I think that's quite a good feat within itself.
Yeah, I tend to agree that I actually think the biggest losers of this are EXO, because I feel like there was a point in the last couple of months where we hadn't seen a lot of team launch in Order that you would go, oh yeah, I guess EXO by default are just going to be the best team in OCE, because obviously if launch aren't playing, then what are they playing for behind the scenes? But like this new Order roster is really showing itself to be a force. The biggest winners of this for me are Notic, and I'm really excited to see them in First Strike going forward, because I think they can run it deep. And I think that's a great segue into the First Strike stuff, because Mex was, I guess, some of the top 8 teams, or basically, when you look at it, when the teams were formed, a lot of the names that were thrown around into Mex are probably the top 8 teams when the tournament was devised. But when you look at the likes of Kanga and Avant, who may have fallen a bit shorter than their expectations, who's ultimately going to now make the top 8 in First Strike? Like, do you see any dark horses, I guess, rising up, Tony?
It's definitely a stacked, I feel, group stage, bracket stage, whatever you want to call it. Because yeah, as you said, Avant, Kanga, little lackluster. There's teams like Air Raiders, even taking a series, I believe, a map off one of these top 6 teams. I can't remember which one. But yeah, of course, a lot of these rosters. I look at Water Bottle especially. A team to fear. The new Direwolves roster will be interesting to see. And yeah, just all around a lot of really strong teams going into this Rise of Valor.
I think the new Direwolves team is actually great. The best part about the new Direwolves team is the fact that we don't have to call them Akatsuki anymore. The second best part
That's a
about
win.
the team,
That's a big one.
that's a big W. The second one is the fact that they're actually kind of good at Valorant, but you know, that comes second. It saves you guys casting. I don't have to worry about saying their name correctly.
Made that mistake certainly in the past.
Katsuki, I think it is.
Change it every time, you know. Mark on the basis.
A Katsuki, like
Yeah, now they're a Wolfsuki.
Wolves.
Yeah, sure, whatever. Direwolves, whatever. Look, Direwolves are better now that Kev's gone. Can we all agree on that?
Yeah.
Don't know what I have to do with it. Like,
I'm not trying to get kicked off here. What are you trying to do to me, Ducky?
Look, if I call the shots on this show.
What do I have to
It's
do
fine.
with it?
You're not on the roster. You're not on the coaching staff anymore. Kev.
Thank fuck. Good.
I guess. I think Water Bowl is a team. Look, Pez drama aside from this week, if you haven't checked that out, go check Panic. Pez drama aside, I think Water Bowl.
Wait, what drama?
Yeah, did you not see the Pez drama this week?
No.
All right, that's something I can't bring up on stream, but like if you go back through Crunchy's videos and you look for the one about a 4K during a domestic, you get a snapshot of what happened.
Is that drama?
That went for 15 minutes and then
Why is it
continued.
drama?
Well, I mean, Pez and Panic were just going.
I thought it was just funny. Like, is that?
I mean, it was hilarious, but at the same time,
got a little heated.
Yeah,
there's 15 minutes of that. I only saw like a short clip. I gotta go back, man.
Yeah, so basically it carried on for like the rest of the game that they were playing, and then Panic went through Pez's Twitter for like 45 minutes.
It was a rough night for both of them.
Jesus.
Okay. Definitely
good time.
Look, it was funny. It was funny, and the best part about it was Panic was streaming to 30 viewers while he was playing, and as soon as he started reviewing Pez's Twitter, he shot up to 200.
Oh my!
As soon as people started hearing about the drama, just more people chimed in. Wow. But yeah,
Excellent.
Look, not to highlight that, but I've got to admit that did make my when was it, Monday night I think or something. Like it was a funny moment. Water Bottle's a good team to bring up. Like, I feel like I don't know. First Strike's a bit weird because I hate to bang on about this, but we're not going to see what's actually like. There is going to be streams, but like we don't have a good gauge of a lot of these teams just purely because of the lack of streaming of, say, the qualifiers. And so, like, even though we've seen like the teams from Max, and then there's obviously the Challenger and Evo teams, there's a lot of teams that don't compete in those two tournaments, or haven't competed in all those tournaments, that could just surprise. Like the old Paradox team, like Chostars, like they were a big surprise in the first Rise of Valor, but nobody knew who they were. Because like none of their games had been broadcasted until they managed to just blaze their way through ROV. Kev's just sitting there smiling because
I was one of the few people. I was one of the few people that actually got to see that game. And you know what? So did Rice, and now he's on the team.
Yeah,
if you can't beat him,
and also the reason I'm smiling so much is I'm just thinking really hard about Water Bottle versus Legacy and how good that would be.
Ooh.
Oh boy. Oh my god.
Straight away, that'd be great.
Please turn all chat on.
Look, turn chat on, make it full screen or make a second stream for it and go ham.
Just like an unfiltered version.
Yeah.
like the explicit stream or whatever.
I do have a concern that Legacy probably would just beat them because Legacy should be the better team, but
Yeah.
maybe I can't underestimate Water Bottle. They have some names on that, but Legacy also have quite a few names on that too, and yeah.
I think ultimately I'm expecting 6 of, like, for me, for First Strike, I think 6 of the 8 next teams are locked in. I think every team aside for Kangaroo and Avant is locked in for a top 8 spot in First Strike in my
Locked
eyes.
in being like locked into a deep run, kind of locked in.
Yeah, like locked into making it to the regional finals.
Okay, so
Like,
6 out of 8. So who are the ones? who
So
are not
Kangaroo
locked
and
in?
Avant, I'm not sold on.
So who would be there instead of Kangaroo Avant then?
See, that's the question. Like, there are
Because 8
mentioned
teams,
like,
is it 8 teams that make it?
yeah,
Yeah.
you've got teams like who didn't play at next. You've got teams like Direwolves, you've got teams like
Riot.
Gravitas, you've got teams like Water Bottle, Overt,
Oh, yeah.
Riot. All those teams all have a chance of
Heard-
taking those
I heard
spots.
Gravitas was pretty decent. I think Mind Freak could be in trouble. I don't know that they're a lock for me. I think they're on the
Yeah.
verge. They're like kind of sitting on the fence. Like on their good day, they'll lock, but on a bad day, they might struggle. I think EXO Order should be locks. I think Legacy in theory should be a lock. No Tick in theory should be a lock. I think Gravitas, although we haven't seen them play, I've heard great things. So that could be a lock, but I hesitate to say because obviously we haven't seen them in officials, so you can't really go on that just yet. I'm still debating. I'm still debating Direwolves right now because technically they did lose to Mind Freak. And then like teams like Kanga that I thought would do very well are currently like, I don't know, maybe they'll bounce back strong. Water Bottle, gonna have to see. Paradox, gonna have to see. And then as you start going down the list, I mean, you've still got like Pants Down, but that's kind of like we'll have to see kind of team as well because Pants Down have kind of struggled in officials lately. Rip and Terror actually a team that is really challenging for a top 8. So if any team that would have been a lock for top 8 slips up, I think a team like Rip and Terror will come in and take a spot. So that's quite dangerous for any team that isn't up to form. So in my mind, there's like maybe only 4-ish locks right now, and then a decent amount of open spots. A few teams that are more favored, but like not quite locked in for me.
Well, there is a way to sort of flip this in a way to sort of try and understand how this position or the situation could play out. I mean, obviously the format isn't the same, but if you were to have any of these teams that we just talked about and inserted them into the Mex Invitational, for example, would they have done better than any of the teams that were in that tournament?
I'm 95% sure that Direwolves and Gravitas would have done better than what Kangaroo and Avant did.
I agree. Yeah.
What's better though? Is better just like one map better? Is better qualifying better? Because
I think better is just playing better. Like I think Kangaroo
okay.
and Avant were underwhelming. I'm not sure what you thought, Tony.
I definitely echo that statement. Kanga started so well. Like I got to cast their first game of the afternoon, and they took like an early lead against Order. I was just like, "There's no way this is happening." And then Order just like flicked the switch and boom, like that. Kanga were like lights out. They lost their second game back to back. I think it just went 0-3. It was Kanga just didn't really show up to play.
This reminds me when Conky's team nearly beat Kanga.
That's true. Yeah.
and since then, Kanga like really evolved as a team. But then like you look at that result, you're like, oh, this is like the old Kanga. This is like the Kanga that Conky nearly beat and maybe should have beaten if circumstances.
Yeah, I mean, like Kanga like finished the tournament with a neg 22 round differential, which over 3 maps is alarming. Because that means you've basically lost 3 maps, like 13 to like if it's 22 rounds, they've lost 3 maps, 13-5 basically.
It was 13-3 versus both Order and Notic, and then 13-11 versus Avant, the other team that struggled. And Avant's only win came versus Kanga as well. So I think you could argue that Avant and Kanga might actually be similar in skill level right now because that was a super competitive game. Yeah. And I believe both those teams really struggled versus the other 2 teams. So you had Avant 5-13 versus Order, and then 6-13 versus Notic. So slightly better than the Kanga result of 13-3, but not by a huge amount, which says to me that the results are pretty congruent with that theory that Kanga and Avant roughly same level, but well and truly a peg below the top 2 in that group.
I think that's enough talking about the teams in First Strike. There is one major thing happening in Rise of Valor First Strike. God, the name. I'm just gonna stop there.
Rise of First Strike.
The Rise of Valor First Strike Edition, Rise of Valor 2 Electric Boogaloo. Sky is going to be enabled. There was an announcement that went out that even though Sky isn't technically, like Riot said that she's going to be available for pro play on November 16, they're going to put her in for the first week of Rise of Valor, which, by the way, I think is a great call. I like the fact that there's been a little bit of discretionary use there because it means it's consistent the whole way through. Tony, start with you. How do you think Sky's going to impact the pro meta? Have you had the chance to tinker around with her?
I've had the pleasure of playing a few games against her, and I can say, and I quote directly to my teammates, "Fuck this bird bitch." I can't see shit. I can only hear birds. Is there a zoo? Is there a zoo here? It's definitely going to be interesting. I feel she brings a lot of flashes to an already prevalent flash meta, of course, because Breach just got updated. Everybody's still playing the Phoenix. Everyone's still playing Omen. It's just going to be a lot of people blind and a lot of multi-kills from the team that get successful flashes off.
Can they just like remove the flashed an enemy call out that she makes when she gets a flash? Like,
I think they did.
No, it's still in.
They?
It's still in. It's still in.
No.
It's actually a mechanic. Like, it's just mind-blowing to me that a character that strong with so much utility also has a mechanic to tell you that, hey, you hit an ability, or hey, you missed an ability. Because the thing with Sky, I feel like, is like, it's not the fact that if you flash someone and you hear that they're flashed, yeah, that's good. But if you flash and no one gets flashed, that's info in itself as well. It's just mind-boggling how much info she can give a team. And like,
she gives away info as well. Remember if the Hawk comes out, I believe that you can see the minimap. Can the enemy see it on the minimap? That's probably the biggest thing. Because if it's like Reyna, if it's like the Reyna layer as well,
they can see it on the minimap. I don't think they can see it on the minimap.
No.
They can't see the Trailblazer, or they can't see the flash on the minimap. And they also need to remove that Reyna thing, but that's a discussion for another day. But yeah, like, and I guess we were talking about this earlier when we were talking about who, like, Viper replacing someone on Split. Like, who potentially does Sky replace on an OC meta team comp right now? Because I've got my own idea, but I'm interested to hear what you guys have to say. Like, Tony, what do you think?
I definitely feel it'd probably replace maybe a Breach or an Omen even. I'm more leaning towards the Breach, of course, but thinking about that, Breach also brings a lot of util, so it's very up in the air for me who Sky would replace. Maybe you can Rocket instead of a Cypher, even maybe try and run a more aggressive defense comp. Yeah.
I think after the patch 111 changes, she 100% replaces Cypher. Before that, I thought she might replace Sova, but now she's 100% a Cypher replacement.
I think it's her as well.
Yeah. For me, like, she's classed as what I would call a component agent. So what I label a component agent is that mainly she operates well in conjunction with other agents. She's not very good at sort of carrying by herself, in the same sort of way, like, for example, that Koreans use Breach, right, as a sort of combo initiator, like marking where someone is and acknowledging their position and detaining them from access. I feel like she's sort of in that same category, as she's very team oriented rather than, say, like, she's sort of in the Breach category, but even more like team reliant, I would say. So I'd imagine she'd sort of replace the Breach perhaps, or if she doesn't replace the Breach, then because of some of the Sentinel nerfs, then I could easily see a Cypher slotting out.
She can only replace Breach or Cypher because you can't replace Omen. That's your only smoke character. Yep. You can't replace Jet because every single team in OCE lives and dies by the Jet. Every OCE is a 100% Jet one-trick region.
It's Omen as well. Like, Omen and Jet are like,
yeah, but the difference is like Omen is globally a one-trick agent.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
Whereas, like, you look at other regions still like are willing to give up Jet. OC is just not willing to give up. I'm not saying they should, but I'm just saying that that's just how it is, good or bad. So those two are locks. You can't get rid of those. Sova's a lock because he's just busted on every single map that's not split. So you're not getting rid of him. The only two positions left is the Cypher Breach position. And by the way, this would be like if you get rid of Breach, you're kind of just slotting in the same character in Breach's role, which kind of makes sense. But then you have to make the argument: okay, is it worth dumping the Breach for this? Is it worth like removing Breach for this? Does Breach just do what Sky does better anyway? In some cases, yes. In other cases, maybe no. It's very different utility. I would argue technically Breach's flashes to me are still better. And then if it's not Breach, then the only position left is the Sentinel position. And I think the Sentinel position is going to be eroded away because teams don't really need it. Like, you don't need, in my opinion, you don't need a Sentinel position. You don't need a Cypher or a Killjoy. That's just something that teams have been doing for so long that they're used to it. Yeah. Really, you can just play it without it. And then you can add a Sky in there. You can add another character in there. I think both the Sentinels in fact, all of them, Sage, Cypher, Killjoy, they've all been nerfed so much that now it seems appropriate to finally get rid of it and get rid of that crutch, because it is a crutch for some teams. They're so used to playing with it, around it, or as it in terms of like all the Cypher one tricks we have in the region as well. This is the best opportunity for teams to kind of just like bin it completely and just give it a go and give something else a go, whether it's Sky or another different agent.
Yeah, I've heard of a lot of teams just binning the Cypher in scrims recently for the Sky, and I think that's the right play. I was actually so surprised watching Mex that Cypher still had like an 80% pick rate when look,
they're just used to it.
I'm plat/diamond, so I'm not great at Valorant, but like Cypher is not good anymore. Like, I feel like the fact that once he dies, he is more than worthless is very bad. Like, when you look at like how Cypher was played as like a lurk on attack, if your lurk dies and you lose all your tripwires, it makes it so much harder to play like defending bomb sites. But the fact that he managed to retain an 80% pick rate through Mex surprised me. Whether that changes now on First Strike, where teams are like, all right, now we're changing our strategies ahead of First Strike. You know, we kind of went into Mex with a locked mind of like, this is what has worked for us for the last 3 months. Let's just keep doing it, and we'll figure it out after this tournament. We've got a week prep heading into First Strike. But yeah, if Sky doesn't replace Cypher on most team comps, if not all, I'd be very surprised. And it's so funny how in like 6 weeks we've gone from the triple Sentinel meta to the 0 Sentinel meta.
First of all, you shouldn't be surprised because Cypher is what everyone played. Again, this is like comfort. Everyone up to until Mex, like this is all you scrim. So no one's had time to really do too much experimenting, except for maybe a little bit of Viper play coming through from Iron. So yeah, everyone's going to play Cypher because that's what everyone has been playing. Like, only now after Mex is done and teams are getting ready for ROV again, that's when you got like, okay, well now we can start exploring, we can start going back to the scrimming. We got a little bit of a break between now and ROV. Like, this is when teams are going to start phasing out Cypher. And just by the way, when we go into ROV, be ready for more Cypher, because plenty of teams may still be relying on that as a crutch because they may not feel comfortable playing without it just yet. So I would say Cypher might go down to like 50%. I would not expect it to be completely eliminated. I would expect some teams to still be relying on it just because that's what they're comfortable with. And I'll be interested to see if Sky is like the new it character to pick, or if, you know, something else just gets fitted in there instead. For example, like more teams playing a Raze or a Reyna or something like that, or going back towards more duelists, or if we're more heavily leaning towards like a team-based composition where everything's like a support character. Are we playing any duelists anymore at all? Because now that you get rid of Cypher, actually you can fit in, you know, the Phoenix if you want. It doesn't have to be Sky, but we'll see if teams want to go for Sky or not.
Pixels just jumped into the chat saying Sage is a crucial character, and he was just about to steal my joke of that Pixel and NoTick are still stuck in like patch 1.08 when Sage was good, but at the same time his Sage had like a 60% win rate, so I can't blame him for that. So there we go. NoTick's got the special tech. But look, I'm very excited to see Sky. OC is gonna have, and that's the one thing I didn't mention in my little talk about there, was that Sky was disabled for Mex, so maybe there wasn't the potential to swap her in, but now that she is going to be finally enabled for First Strike, things are going to get spicy, and you should expect a lot of changes. And I, for one, welcome it, because Sentinels suck.
Because you like animals and flashes.
Because I just hate Sentinels. I mean, my role is safe. I play Omen. There we go. Like, unless they're like completely
Riot's going to target
Omen.
you. Riot's going to target you. Whenever there's a high play rate on something, Riot's like, well, we can't have that.
Look, if Riot target Omen, that only means I can go back to playing Brimstone. which means I can flex
Hey.
mollies on everyone. Like, there we go. Tony's got the tech. He knows what's up.
I love Brim. I was originally loading a ton of Brim, of course, because I had a brief stint in LPL Evo. And I was just like, oh, we need post-plant mollies. Who's good at that? Oh, Brimstone. Say less.
Yeah. I love some of the Brim mollies. And I think, look, this is a little known fact about TwoTapTony, the Venture Val Pro himself playing in LPL Evo. But also on top of that, I feel like when it comes to looking at the OC Val and discourse, like Tony is the #1 advocate for LPL Evo. And I think, I guess the #1 question is for me is like, why do you think people need to pay attention to LPL Evo as well as like some of the other competitions? Because I'm interested to hear your thoughts.
I guess I'm a big advocate for an underdog, I guess. Because I look at some of these teams, of course, you look at Rip and Tear in Evo, seeded 8th, they absolutely tore up the Invitational in their own regard. Of course, Notic, a pretty good team as well, they tore up the Invitational in their own regard. Both teams in Evo, and no one expected them to come in so hot. Of course, very, very little statistic-wise from Notic, of course, not playing any of the games, so they're not in the finals. But of course, Rip and Tear, 6-0, I believe 7-1 or something like that. Absolutely tearing apart the Evo season, and like one of those teams that you expect to be in the Challenger, you expect to be at that top level, just absolutely farming Evo in lesser sense. And of course, there's like a lot of other really great teams that are putting in tons of effort. Of course, shout out to again mine and Ducky's favorite team to simp, the Shadownet boys, putting in a lot of work behind the scenes that we don't get to know about because no one is talking about these Evo teams.
Like when you look at the Evo tables right now, you've got teams like Team Bliss, which is Bullet L's team, formerly known as Rockdale's Finest. I guess that was kind of born out of the Crabwalk Killers roster that made top 16 in OVO. You've got teams like Water Bottle, Riot Gaming, which is the most unfortunately named team. But if you want to hear more about them, we interviewed Kaiter a couple of weeks back. Great chat with him. Overt. There are a lot of really strong teams in Evo that are probably only in Evo because the qualifiers for Evo were held so long ago.
Oh, it was a while back, and I believe it was they had, of course, the main Evo qualifiers, and then they had a last chance one directly afterwards for all the teams that didn't qualify through that main bracket but were good enough that they placed. I believe it was top 20 to 16 or something like that, and had the chance to get a shot at Evo. Unfortunately, I believe one of those teams that did make it through that last chance qualifier to drop out. So that's why we were able to make it. We got injected last minute, and we were all just like, "What? How is this possible? We didn't even play that well in the qualifiers." But yeah, as someone who's pracked against these teams, scrimmed against them, of course, watched them play, it's really, really good to see such a strong level of competition, even at the evolution and the amateur level, even.
Yeah,
I would argue right now that the Challenger evolution thing doesn't really like exist because this you guys brought up the point that the qualifiers were so long ago. The skill level of the teams have changed drastically, and now if you were to reassess it, because it's taken like this tournament has been going for a while, things have definitely been changing, and also the qualifier itself, like based on who you were seeded against, really determined if you were going to get placed in Evo or not and stuff like that. For example, like you could say that Cracked maybe had a bit of a easier run through, so they kind of had a bit of an advantage there to make it through. You could say that, for example, look at Ground Zero. They don't even exist as a team anymore. You look at Avant, they're starting to really struggle now, and Water's not even in challenges. So I mean, it's just like it's a bit of a random mix. And you have really good teams in Evo, like Notic and Rip and Tear, obviously, and then you don't even have teams like Pants Down here. I wonder where they would be. They're probably, I don't know if they would be in Challenger. But the point is like it's such a.
Pants Down's Evo right
so,
now. Pants Down's in
Evo.
They're in Challenger. Pants Down's in Challenger. Yeah, sorry, wrong one. Got it the wrong way around.
Okay, I don't see them in the bracket, but
they lost to Pants Down. Lost to Pants Down. No, they lost to EXO,
they lost
and then
to
they lost to
Mindfreak. Okay, so it's just stuff like that. But so I guess the point is like the whole Challenger evolution, like this kind of gap. It's just to me, there's no gap. To me, it's like it's just a complete mix of teams, and this like tier thing doesn't exist in my mind. It just exists for the tournament.
I feel like, look, I love the way that you brought up seeding because I'll never forget my uni team coming up first against Notic in the qualifiers and just getting absolutely reamed. But that all that aside, I like you look at it. It's hasn't Crack disbanded?
No idea.
I think they've I think
Or
they're
they just
all-
renamed or something.
Yeah.
To
So
fix.
they've rebranded.
Wait, that's Azulate's team, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
They actually, no, they might have disbanded actually.
Yeah, I think
haven't
Crack's
heard from him for a while.
disbanded. And like you said, like there's Ground Zero in Challenger who don't exist anymore. Although when they did break up, they were probably one of the best teams in the region. I really liked that Ground Zero roster.
Rest in
It's just
peace,
a shame that they were only together for like a month. As is the
And
things
now,
of
and
an
now
early...
you can like that roster in several different pieces across several different teams.
Yeah, I guess you look at Legacy, you look at Order, you look at Gravitas. Like it's all the
And then you
pieces.
look
And
at
I guess you can say that they've been equally dispersed across teams that can be considered top 8 or top 14.
All I'm saying is like this whole Challenger evolution thing's been out of date now.
Yeah.
If you can't look at these teams and be like, oh, those are the Challenger teams, like, no, not really. Just like EXO and like Avant and Mind Freak and stuff, and maybe Direwolves. It's like so many teams here that either don't exist now or exist in different forms, or the skill level is vastly different to when they qualified. That it's just not really accurate anymore.
Yeah.
Hopefully that heading into 2021 we can get a more accurate look at things. And look, First Strike's probably going to be the best place that we can do it. The action kicks off this weekend, November 14. I think it is streamed on the Fortress Twitch channel. I hope it is, because I really want to see more top tier Valorant action. So like, get around, support OC Valorant, just like we did with the Max Invitational, and get to see who potentially makes the top 8. Look, I think that wraps us up for tonight. Thank you so much for joining us. Before we leave though, Tony, please give yourself a little plug. Where can we catch you?
It's at TwoTapTony, obviously on Twitter, TwoTapTony on Twitch, TikTok even, I believe, at TwoTapTony. But yeah, no, just at TwoTapTony and everything, you'll probably find me. But yeah, no, it was a pleasure to have coming on, and good to talk some Valorant.
Is there room for one final question for the Triple T?
There is room, 100%.
Okay, all right, mate. Why is your name TwoTapTony? Why is it just like one tap? Because like, isn't that better? Like it's one tap.
Yeah, look,
I get you're going. I get you're going for the alliteration, like the TTT. But
yeah.
is there any more to that, or?
You've got me hooked. Yeah, no, alliteration. It just sounded a lot better in my head. Obviously, I'm not that good of a player, so I can never kill someone with just one tap. I gotta go for the second one just to back it up.
Well, what he actually means is he's got the 2-tap of the 1-2. Like, he's got 2 people down. There you go. He's actually better than you think he is, Kev.
There you go.
Yeah. You thought it was 2 bullets to take down one person? No, it's just 2 1-taps back to back. We'll call it that at least.
Ducky the Advocate, respect.
Yeah. Anyways, that will do us for Run It Back tonight. Thank you so much for joining us. Obviously, you can find out more great OCE Valorant content through Snowball Esports. Please be sure to check us out on Twitter at Snowball Esports. Please be sure to check out us 3 on Twitter, Ducky, Avril, and Rackets. Rackets is at Rackets.
Correct.
Avril's got I'm Avril, and I'm Vicky underscore. I've got the worst handle out of the 3 of us, but whatever. And as we said, you can catch more Oceanic Valorant content on the Snowball Esports Twitter and also at snowballesports.com. Thank you so much for watching this week of Run It Back. We'll be back next Wednesday, 8 PM with another special guest. Thanks for watching.